Just a warning, I read a lot of romance novels this month. Hey guys, so welcome back. Let's do a July wrap up. I'll tell you what was good, I'll tell you what was bad, and then we'll go through my August TBR and new releases to be aware of for August. We had a lot of romances this month. The first is Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer. This is a hockey romance novel from the author of one of my favorites, The Wrong Mr. Right. This is on Kindle Unlimited. The novel is about a hockey player and his new assistant. They both had secret crushes on each other in high school, and now it's like 10 years later or something, and they're living together. So, you know, normal romance book things ensue. This was a nice, quick, to-the-point rom-com. Some of the plot points I did feel were a little bit rushed, but if you're looking for a smutty read, this is perfect. Also, I really appreciate that there wasn't any unnecessary drama to cause a third act breakup. Next is Hello Stranger by Katherine Center. This was actually a July Book of the Month pick, but I got it as an ARC before it came out. And I've just been putting off reading it, and I finally was like, okay, it's coming out this month. I need to read it. I need to read it before it comes out. I need to read it. I need to read it. I need to read it. So I read it, and I'm mad at myself for putting off reading the ARC for so long because I really enjoyed it. So in this one, the main character, after having this emergency brain surgery, she develops face blindness, which is a huge hurdle for her to overcome because she's actually a portrait artist. Now, this book is labeled a romance book, but it did feel like the main character had a lot more going on versus just like the romance aspect. It felt like a lot more of like her adjusting to this new way of life. Overall, I thought this book was lovely. I woke up the next day after finishing it thinking about it and wanting to reread it. And I've been putting off reading the ARC because I didn't think I would be into the premise of the book. I didn't know how the story was going to unfold. I didn't find the premise to be particularly that interesting. But when reading it, it was really intriguing and it sucked me in right away. There were a few aspects that I didn't love, like some of the side characters, and I wanted the main character to be more headstrong throughout the entirety of the book. But in the end, she ended up being headstrong, so I suppose it made for some good character growth. So it worked out in the end. Also, another reason I was a little iffy on the ARC is I know the author doesn't do any like open door scenes in her books. So I was like, I don't know if I want to waste my time reading this. But actually, with there being no sex scenes, really worked for the book. I'm not sure where they would have fit in nicely, and I do agree with the author not putting any in. And it's really rare that I'm going to admit that no sex scenes were better. Next is In the Likely Event by Rebecca Yarros. So this is a romance novel by that author that is blowing things up right now with Fourth Wing, which I still need to read. But I got this romance novel as a early read from the Amazon First Reads program. So it's out now in August. So it's a romance novel about this law student and a soldier, but they aren't together. But basically they've been circling each other for 10 years, but the timing has never been right. The book alternates from the past over these 10 years to present, where now they're thrown together again, where he has to be the head of her security detail, and they're forced to work together. Man, these second chance romance books always break my freaking heart. For some reason, this book had me in tears multiple times, and I was at multiple points, I was very afraid that it was not going to have a happy ending. My favorite part of the book were the flashbacks. Those were the parts of the book that had me in tears. In terms of what was happening in the present day, I didn't so much care about it. I more liked seeing them like grow to love each other over the years, but you know, the timing was never right, versus present day where they like hate each other and they're both like utterly hurt because of what the other one did. This book did have a lovely amount of spice, about 4 out of 5, and overall I really liked it. I could see myself rereading this one. Next, we're rolling right into another second chance romance book, Same Time Next Summer by Annabel Monaghan. This book I felt was, versus the previous second chance book, I felt like this one was a much lighter read. It felt more of like a beach read. It didn't make me cry at all, so that was nice. It was about two people who grew up together over the summer on the beach. Both of their families had beach houses next door to one another, so they basically grew up together from like the age of 6 to like 17. Later, as adults, they're back at the beach and they're seeing each other again for the first time in like 15 years. Also, the female main character is engaged to someone else, so she has to sort through these feelings that she's having. This was a classic second chance romance novel with the flashbacks of first love, the heartbreak, the awkwardness of seeing each other again, and then the eventual coming back together. There were times in the book where I was like, who is the main character going to end up with? And I could legit not decide who I wanted her to be with, but it is a romance novel, so you can kind of infer who she's going to end up with. In the end, I did feel like the book was done really well and it kept me on my toes, and I did end up being very happy with the outcome. Surprisingly, with this romance novel, it was not spicy at all. Another romance novel that had no spice in it that I read, and I can't believe, again, I almost skipped this book because I was like, I always just look it up to see like, oh, how spicy is it? You know, because I like spice. And usually if it's not spicy, I skip it. But for some reason I was like, well, I'll read it anyway. And I'm so glad that I did. I feel like I'm limiting myself by looking up whether or not there's spice in these books. So I think I'm gonna stop doing that. I think I might start reading more romance novels that are like closed door and stuff, because like, I really, really enjoyed this book. I didn't even feel like it needed any sort of spice for it to be good. Like, I just thought it was just really good the way it was. I feel like I'm growing and adapting. Now, speaking of spice, the last romance book is by Tessa Bailey, Fix Her Up. So, of course, it's super spicy, super basic romance. This is one of Tessa's most popular books. I didn't love the tropes that were in it, but I do find Tessa's books to be a lot of fun to read. Like, I'll read her regardless, even though like the entire tropes of the book, I'm like, I don't really like any of this, but I like the smut. So this book is about a retired baseball player who returns to his hometown, and he sparks up a romance with his best friend's little sister. And it initially starts as like a fake dating thing, and then we all know where that's heading. I don't know, honestly, the connection between the two main characters didn't feel that much. And plus I hated that the main character used the pet name of baby girl all the time. I freaking hate everything about that, and it just takes me out of the book. I hate it, hate it, hate it. I feel like I would have enjoyed the book more if I didn't constantly have to read this pet name that just like is nails on a chalkboard to me. But overall, I don't ever expect much from a Tessa Bailey book, to be honest, except spice, which there's always a lot of, so you know. Okay, so next is Dark and Shallow Lies. This was my random TBR draw from last month. Also, so I drew 2 last month. My other random draw was The Girl You Left Behind by Jojo Moyes. Wasn't a bad book, but I only got like 50 pages in before stopping it. I need to learn. Historical fiction just isn't my jam. I just wasn't into it, so I'm just like, moving on. But with this one, The Dark and Shallow Lies, I really liked it. So it was a very intriguing young adult magical realism book that was also a little bit of a thriller. It's about Gray, who is going back to live with her grandmother for the summer in this little Louisiana town. And this town is like a tourist trap, and its whole gimmick is like it's a psychic town. Like you go there and you can have like tarot card readings and psychic readings, things like that. But with this summer, things are a little bit different. So Gray's best friend, who lives in the town full time, is now missing, and Gray wants to find her, obviously. But in her search, other secrets about the town start to come to light. Honestly, I was a little obsessed with the atmosphere and the magical realism of the book. I felt just so immersed in this swampy location. I loved learning about the characters' random like magical and psychic talents. I was very interested in the story and the world building right away. I was super into it. I also loved the whole mystery in the book, like the thriller part of like, what happened to this girl? It took twists and turns that I didn't see coming, and overall, I thought it was a really well told story. I will definitely be checking out more by this author into the future. Last is Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. This was the poll winner for the Book of the Month pick for July. So I have a whole spoiler talk on this book. I'll link that down below. Long story short, I didn't love it, so I'm not gonna spend any more time on it. Mainly the gist of the book was it was more world building than plot. I do hope that the series will get better as it progresses. I just did not feel like this book was a very strong start. Okay, I just want to touch on several things that I've been into this month before we get to my TBR for August. The first is the new season of The Bachelorette. I've been a Bachelor fan for ever and ever and ever, but particularly this season, I'm super into it. I love Charity. I think she is one of my favorite Bachelorettes. She's just so likable. She feels like the type of person you would just want to be friends with, and I usually don't feel that way about people on the show, and so just like her personality is like really grabbing me, and I want good things for her. Also, there's a new season of Futurama on Hulu. Futurama is one of my favorite shows back in the day, and I'm super pumped that it's getting a reboot. I've watched the first 2 episodes. It looks and sounds exactly like it did before it got rebooted, so I'm pretty pleased. This is one instance where I'm actually excited that show is being rebooted. Okay, August TBR. So the Book of the Month poll winner for August was Vampires of El Norte. I will have a spoiler talk on that coming out probably at the end of the month, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that. And of course, my goal for the year is to work through my physical TBR bookshelf. So we have TBR roulette. I was gonna start picking 2 a month to try and go through my TBR quicker. But I changed my mind. I think I'm just gonna go back to picking 1, and then other books I'm just going to mood read. So let's just see what I'm gonna be forced to read this month. Okay. What you got? Oh, this is already on my list. That's perfect. Okay, so Tomorrow Times 3. Grab it. Okay, so this is perfect that I picked this. So Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This was a Book of the Month pick from last year. It won Book of the Year. I did not get it from Book of the Month, as you can see. This has been on my list forever, and I have been telling myself, you have to read this year. You need to read this year. And how perfect that I am now forced to read it by my random TBR bucket. Also, last month I had planned on reading Yellowface. I feel like I keep saying, I need to read this, I need to read this, I need to read this. So I'm going to read it this month, I swear, but we'll see. I always say that. I always like have these grand plans for like things that like I'm gonna like, oh, I'm definitely going to read that this month. And then I just don't get around to it, and other things just like catch my eye and I read those instead. But I'm going to try and for sure read these 2 this month, plus all of the other random things that catch my eye. Also, here are some noteworthy new releases coming out in August. Foxglove by Adalyn Grace. My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin. Together We Rot by Skyla Arndt. Medusa's Sisters by Lauren J.A. Bear. So that is it for me today, guys. Thanks so much for watching, as always. I hope you find some awesome things to read in August. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye!